This is Guardian Radio, your station for up-to-the-minute news, intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversation. 96.9 FM. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
Good morning and welcome to Guardian Radio AM. This is C.A. Newry and I'm having that mash down day with Aaron Green from On the Clock, and we're having an exciting conversation about even our culture. See, I just was talking to Aaron on the break about crime and whether crime is cultural. And this is what we're going to discuss on this side. I'm going to read this and then I'm going to play a short clip. I see that the Minister of National Security made a statement, and the statement was, the only way we're going to stop murders is if we stop producing murderers. And that is our challenge. And I'll read it again. The only way we're going to stop murders is if we stop producing murderers. And that is our challenge. And I'm trying to say, are we producing murderers? Is this a part of who we are? And this is where I get betwixt and between on whether the Minister of National Security is copping out or whether he is shining light on us, a dark version of us. And to add to this discussion, I have a short clip. I have some clip by some foreigners, some bright-skinned people from the foreign land who have some commentary about living in the Bahamas. And I'm not sure if anyone have heard this as yet, but I wanted to play this because it plays into this theory that perhaps our problem, perhaps our crime problem is a cultural problem, right? So producer, can you play that clip? And then I'll prod at Erin and let her try to save us, because I think our problem is us. Go ahead, producer.
If you love the beach, if you love close access to the United States, and if you really enjoy pushing rocks uphill, the Bahamas is for you. It is a constant struggle to get anything done. It's a beautiful, beautiful country physically, but it's just a very difficult infrastructure to get anything done.
If you have property, for example, I am not joking you, almost every day there was a power outage. And you have to go, hopefully your phone is charged, so you can go onto the Bahamas National Electric and see, okay, when are they going to turn on my power? What's going to happen? And you just don't realize how bad it is, especially with the heat and everything else. So I don't mean to disparage the Bahamas. I mean, the people are amazing. My wife keeps saying that, she's never met as friendly individuals as there. But you have to take into account all these things when you move to another country.
And the good gentleman said he doesn't mean to disparage the Bahamians, but it is what it is. And what he said is...
No, he said because they are very nice people.
No, but I can skip over that. But what he said is the problem with the Bahamas is having Bahamians live there. That's how I interpret it. And I said, no, this man can't be serious, right? But I listened to it about 4 different times. And I concluded the man is blaming the problem on we. And then, hold on, Aaron, I still venting. Then I listened to the Minister of National Security, and he said that the problem would be serious. What's happening now is us. We are producing murderers, right? So I said again, the problem is us. The problem, and I've heard this when I was working in tourism, right? Working behind the gates there, where they said the only bad thing in the Bahamas is that we have too many Bahamians living here. And that narrative is repeating again and again. And I'm saying, what you mean by that? Mm-hmm. They said that we are responsible for the crime. We are responsible for the blackouts. We are responsible for the bad customer service. And I'm saying, Aaron, how do we deal with that if the problem is cultural?
Okay, let me tell you how we deal with that. The first thing we have to do is figure out who is this we you talking about, right?
You?
No,
I see how you drive.
You see how I drive?
I see, the whole face change.
That's because you ain't watching the road.
I'm watching the road.
You're supposed to watch the road.
Okay.
You see, that thing that Wayne Monroe had troubled me, because we are producing the murderers. And that's only half wrong. The only question is, who is the we? Who is producing the murderers? No, it can't be me. I have a feeling I know who it is, though, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's the same we that responsible for the power not being on.
The same we?
The same we, right? Because it ain't It ain't me. It ain't Bobo on the road. Now, sometimes it's Bobo on the road who's driving, just bang up into the pole and break up the pole. And BPL like to tell us a lot of times that, that's the problem when you have these little outages because somebody had an accident and it hit the pole, right? And I thinking to myself, how is it that we live in a hurricane zone, right? And you have poles up that's supposed to withstand up to, category 4, category 3, category 4.
100 odd winds.
But you can't stand a little paso running into you every once in a while.
No, a little rain.
Or a little, well,
Spry. We call it spry.
extreme flooding is going to
Not
be...
flooding,
Hold on, no,
right.
but I'm telling you, extreme flooding is going to be an issue for BPL and all of the people responsible for infrastructural issues. The tree drop in the road by Sun Fund this weekend. I'm sure that's due to saturated ground, due to excessive flooding frequently in that area.
But that is also
Right?
due to over a period of time us seeing it. That we've seen the problems happening, and I think you said it best. When we see it, we don't correct it. And that is the problem, the enforcement of these things when we see them.
But this is the point. If it's anybody who is producing murderers, right, then surely it is the people who have a responsibility to provide a service, right? There are people who are supposed to make sure that children are in school.
Definitely.
Right? There are people who are supposed to make sure that people are living in accommodations of an appropriate standard.
Checks and balances.
But there will also be government officials who will blame the same people say, well, if you didn't have that many children, you would have made sure your child in school. So the blame is now being pivoted from the checks and balance that we're supposed to have now to society. It's like we know society is broken. And I, who are a law-abiding citizen, every time I complain and say, y'all got to do something, you say that you are part of the problem. I say, but I ain't doing nothing, man.
The question...
I paying taxes. I driving on the left-hand side of the road.
You're doing what you're supposed to do.
Ian, the question of bail, right? Has a human right become a hazard? State actors are trying to convince us that they need to breach one of the most basic, fundamental human rights, right? They need to breach that right to get their job done, right? When we know that a part of the reason why people are getting bail is because the judiciary itself cannot process its cases in an efficient and effective amount of time. They can't get we have to be very careful how we talk about the judiciary and in particular judges, right? But there are a number
You
of...
don't want me to run all the way to the States and never come back.
There are a number of...
Yeah, I know some people like
Oh,
that.
Sam.
Okay.
Listen, I'm making a serious point here, right? That if anybody is making murderers of us, then perhaps it is the people who have a duty of care, have a legal or a statutory obligation, but as opposed to fulfilling it or coming to the people and telling them why they can't fulfill it, they want to look at us and tell us that, we're going to have to breach the Constitution to run the country properly.
But there's some things you have to look at in that particular narrative. We see a lot of persons, like you said, the backlogs in the court system. I think there is a lot of lower standard cases that are clogging those particular, whether it be traffic, whether it be petty things. I mean, I'm just saying there's a bunch of things that we can solve like minorly. Like we could say...
Take care of the pennies and pounds to take care of themselves.
Yeah, basically. So when we start to do things like that, I think by decluttering the system itself like that, then we can address the real situations that we have in the room. My thing is that a person has the right to bail. However, if you're coming for the exact same case you've been on 2 and 3 times, I think that sends a red flag that something's wrong here. I mean, just saying, it's an opinion of mine, but it's like you're on bail for murder. You don't just get 1 bail. You got 2 bails or 3 bails for murder. That's
3, 4, 5 years pass and you still didn't get the case tried yet.
For the first one.
For the first one. See, that's the problem. Not the bail is a
problem.
The problem is the case is not being adjudicated quickly enough.
And then that individual will say, justice delayed is justice denied.
But it is denied.
It is. Right? And so these are the things that we have to grapple with. And I would say to all state actors, this is the second time This is at least the second time with a statement of such gravity. The first is when the Prime Minister said, "Oh, we may have to breach the Constitution to run the country properly." I don't think people understand how detrimental that was, and even more detrimental is the lack of appropriate response to a statement like that. And now we are at the point in our society where people are looking you straight in your face and saying, "What you think this is, miss? Stealing coconuts is not a crime." I have had people tell me that to my face.
But the coconut tree belongs to Jah.
Coconuts is not taking coconuts off your tree, They didn't say, "Miss, taking them coconuts out your yard isn't a crime." They said stealing the coconuts out your yard is not a crime.
But this is where it starts, and the correction has to happen. You're taking something that does not belong to you, right? And you're justifying by taking it to say that it's only simply a juju, it's only simply a canap or a plum. No, it's more than just that. Because if you could deprive that individual from whatever it is that they own, that's not going to just stop there. You're going to go through your whole life thinking that it's okay for me to do that, or it's not big, it's minor.
Listen, I know this boy. He just tell me the story. He wake up. For whatever reason, he fell asleep at the front of the house. He wake up because the boy them are trying to take the bumper off of the car parked right next to, on the other side of the wall where he is. So he jumps out and he deters them. They go away. 2 days later,
they come back.
Well, we don't know if it's them. We can't prove that in a court of law,
right.
Of course. 2 days later, he look up at his coconut tree, all the coconuts gone. Mind you, for the last 2 weeks, he's been trying to get somebody to take the coconuts out the tree, He had a plan, In fact, I was supposed to buy some of the coconuts from him, But those guys probably look at the coconut tree and say, well, you can't get mad if we come and take the coconuts. At least we ain't take the part off your car.
But the thing is, one of the days when we used to knock on the door, and if I see something that belonged to you, and I said, "Excuse me, sir, I see the coconuts up in here. Is it possible that I can get some coconuts? Or can I get some juju? Preferably, I saw the juju or the mango." And let the person say, "Hey, yeah, I was ever looking for something, but just leave me 2 or 3 on the ground." Like, you don't want to ask somebody anymore and say, "Can I have it?" You just want to go there and say, "I want to take that from you or deprive you from having that."
And then demand that you ease up. Demand that you catch sense. How dare you call me a criminal?
Listen,
I only thief in the coconuts.
Aaron, we have an enforcement problem across the board. Like you say, you're going into government departments and you have a lot of these persons in the front there, so forth, and they're very rude. There has to be some level of supervisor and managers that can write something. Suggestion boxes should be in every government department, in my opinion.
But I'll challenge you, Aaron, and ask you, who in the Bahamas are doing the crime? Is it the men in society, or is it the whole society going bad? Is it single parent women households producing these criminals?
It's a mix.
But we need to find out and designate that this is the problem and address that problem.
Before you play the song Osam, Osam, it could have been easy for me to believe that only your boy Bobo and don't want to go to Waco, right? Only Shaquila and I ain't a squealer on my man. They would have us convinced that those are the people at the root of the crime crisis, right? The women who refuse to take care of their children and refuse to stop having baby. But what our friend Sam has shown us, right, is that crime comes in all colors, and it comes in all classes, right? And it comes in from every direction. We have a culture, I think the root of our crime crisis, because I had asked, do you think is it a crisis of masculinity, right? But it can't be just that. Is it an economic crisis of people turned to crime because no other solutions are working for them?
It's a social and economic
problem. Is it an
yeah.
education crisis, right?
Lack
Are
of
they
education.
leaving school without the ability to navigate the world legitimately?
You know what's a crime? And I'm going to say it. It's been 6 months, no, less than that, 4 months since the commissioner of police said that he's going to come and report on the accused of having the MP knock down the police officer. He ain't come back yet.
In fact,
and he said, I'm going to report to you next week. 1 month gone by, 2 months gone by, 3 months gone by, 4 months. That's a crime. He need to get sent home. Something is wrong with that. And all he had to come to do and say, but we had found no evidence that the MP knocked the police officer. And I was going to be end that because I wasn't going to question him. The idea that he has yet to come, even after promising us, is a problem. But that is a contempt towards us, and that's a crime.
The commissioner can have somebody that is investigating it. The commissioner doesn't go investigate it himself. When the investigation is concluded, it'll be sent to the commissioner, and the commissioner then will address it.
See, that's the same thing. That's the same thing I told the FNM. I told the FNM, I don't care that it's 2021. I still waiting to hear the results of the investigation about the fire at the station. Right? I still waiting to hear the results of the investigation and how the report was leaked to the media. Yeah. I still waiting to hear where the Oban file is.
The Oban file is still inside the OPM office.
I still waiting to hear an official report on the fallout from Alstom. Alstom, where a member of the board appointed by an FNM administration went to court and was found guilty. And almost gone to jail proper until he had to say out loud, if y'all don't pay this bill for me. Right? Like all of those things. So when a state actor could get up and say, right, like who is producing we are producing the murderers, I want to say I'm gonna need you to refine that to a sharp to a sharp, perhaps it's the people that have a statutory duty of care to perform and don't and still collect their paychecks. Because
I love that silence. Just
when the police asked the boy, why you thieving? And he say, to pay this electricity bill because my Grammy have diabetes and her medication needs to be refrigerated. And my uncle has HIV and his medication needs to be refrigerated. Right?
Does that fall under the social...
Why I robbing? All I want him to do is look at all of the people who are responsible for why. See, when I was telling y'all that I grew up understanding that your electricity bill was going to be the same as your mortgage. And we right back there again. We are right back at that point where people are paying the same in rent as they are in their electricity bill. That creates crime. That creates murderers.
All you're saying to me, Aaron, in a nutshell, is that we're not creating enough persons that have the capacity to think outside of the box, and rather we're going to have a lot of sheep that is just going to follow the instructions of the said persons. And this is why we have to challenge our system and challenge the government itself to create opportunities for these people to start to think outside of the box. We started to discuss on industries. We started to say how the car wash guy cleaned 5 cars and he make $100. But in the Bahamas, we have one of the largest boat registries in the world. Here goes one of the industries. The individual young man could be able to learn how to clean these boats that we have around here, which will make thousands and thousands of dollars. They have underwater cleaning also. That means so many other things. We're in a maritime, we're in a key place for boaters. So there's things like that should be emphasized and implemented. We're looking at the structural system of BTVI, what it was then to what it is now. We're saying to you that we already see the problems. We have a problem with me saying that we're bringing in all of these foreigners. Then we need to create an institution that will now open the door for these young individuals to get into these trades. You have bilingual, you have underwater welding, you have persons that are dealing with gemology, you have persons that are going to deal with everything that we have foreigners coming in here to do. We should have had a facility facilitating the skill for these young people in the Bahamas moving forward for the 21st century.
But you see what happened. You see what happened to BTVI, right? They turn over what? They turn over as many financial officers in as many years, right? The BTV, and so when I asked the question a couple of weeks ago, who is supposed to assist Bahamians, young Bahamians, turning their labor into a job, their job into a career, their career into an industry? who is supposed to be doing that? Well, I have a feeling they all busy trying to get into politics.
But it's a national plan. Having a national plan, all of these things should be implemented. We're talking about the great minds of our country in terms of having a think tank. I thought that we would have had a think tank. All of the great minds should have been employed to think about ways our country could be propelled. We have internal and external persons, great-minded people, Bahamians. We have to use these ambassadors, these intellectuals, to make our country go forward.
I mean, absolutely, and create a culture where it's possible for them to do that and still live. I see we got a call on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on the clock. Oh, sorry. Let me pause. Mr. Newry.
I see you messing up the show. You trying to claim other people's show. The audacity.
Oh, no, I just attempted to mash you down.
Trying to mash you down,
I'm trying to say.
Good morning, sir.
No. Good morning, sir. How you doing today?
Everything's great.
And welcome to the show. This is Guardian Radio in the AM with C.A. Newry. And I have a guest host here who's Aaron Green and Ian Munnings. And I'm excited to have you join
If you'd
me.
like to make a call, please hang up and try again.
What happened to
If you
the
need
call?
help, hang up and then dial your
Arlington,
operator.
tell them call again.
Tell them call again. See, you cost me miss my guest. But I want to say, right, while the guests call back, right, and we speak to them. Just now, there were 4 people who attempted to rob RBC. Is it means that Christmas has come and that it's a proliferation of crime? Or is it that we are, again, like what the minister said, that we are breeding murderers and criminals and that we are responsible for those 4 people robbing
Hold
the
on.
bank?
I agree. We are producing everything that is produced here. But the question is, who is the we? And who has the
village.
Who has the greater responsibility?
The village.
No.
It's not.
I ain't doing that. My neighborhoods don't rob.
No, I can tell you why. I
So
said
which
that.
village? Your village?
No,
don't rob?
I can tell you why I said that.
But my village.
I can tell you why I said that. That is the egg that came home to rooster, because the reality is crime is not subjected to just one particular set of people or one particular area. Crime is based on everywhere in the
There's no
encompassing that
robbery
area.
on my street.
Where there's none on your street now, there could be one on your street tomorrow.
No,
We don't
I
know.
police in that area.
You police it, so you have a crime watch there. You have a crime watch
Of
there.
course, we have a crime watch.
So if you have a crime watch there in your vicinity, you have a crime watch.
Yes,
What
I-
happens on the boundaries of that?
But I only
It
can
spill over.
police that little section.
But the reality is, it's
I
going to
am
take all of us as
doing
Bahamians
my
to do
part.
our due diligence and our job.
And if
hold on.
you are not doing your part,
Ian, I try.
it's you.
I doing my part. I'm identifying the people that have a statutory duty of care. I identifying the people that have an ethical and a moral duty of care, and I'm asking them, what is it that you need from me and the wider community to get your job done, right? See, the Ministry of Tourism doesn't think that it has a duty of care in this crime issue, but has the Ministry of Tourism ever thought about the impact, right? The impact of the knowledge that the government and the Ministry of Tourism would be subsidizing tourists to come and sleep here and enjoy the Bahamas while Bahamians don't have a bed to sleep in.
Yeah, definitely. But I still want to know if it's me, if it's you.
It's possibly you, and it's partly me.
It's partly.
Yeah, it's partly me.
I guess so.
No, because, I mean, technically, if you see the problem and you see the solution, then that means it's yours to solve it, right? I don't think any of us are doing enough. I think all of us could put in 5% extra. All of us could put in 5% extra, minimum, right? Minimum. There are some of us.
I can embrace that.
There's some of us, though, that need to realize that equality says we all put in 5%. Equity says that you could afford to put in 25%, and you should.
But what about the national psyche? We now having Bahamians who is claiming that the pirates have never been expelled, that they're expecting bad
Bonnie and Mary
behavior,
Reid.
the bad behavior, this corruption is a part of who we are. And if that narrative is true, or if Bahamians start believing that narrative is true, then we give up. But now we are now purporting, you hear anything that goes wrong, don't worry about that. We always were being pirates all our lives.
I don't understand why you keep casting aspersions on pirates.
You want pirates?
First of all, pirates had a moral code.
They had a
They had the
moral-
pirate code.
But they robbed, man.
They followed. Who did they rob?
They rob Conky Joe.
You know that when they say, when they say pirates expel commerce restored, that the
Yes.
commerce they were talking about
Yes.
was trading in Africans.
It's trading in African bodies.
Yeah. Plus, see, y'all want this Billy and tell McFarlane he can't come back here, right? McFarlane, he say, look, I's a pirate too. Why won't y'all let me come back home? I feel really at home here. But I just have one thing to say to Mr. McFarlane. Cousin, you know you can't just write no letter to the Prime Minister and say, please forgive me of my sins, right? You didn't figure that out by now?
People just write the prime minister all the time and they get things.
No. Do they get forgiven of their sins?
Oh, well, they just get to bring in planes with for dogs. They just get to say they ain't paying no more taxes increase. These things is part of who we are. It's part of what the problem is. You know?
Special treatment.
Special treatment.
I didn't sign off on none of that.
People able to build houses without permits, and I still here got to wait on permits and documents and money.
But listen, if I have an opportunity to move to Lyford or Albany or Old Fort Bay, I would do the same thing.
That's true. Your benefits.
I mean, you know,
because they said they ain't from over the hill.
It's just about the choice of shanty
But remember
town.
now, they said they ain't from over the hill.
No, because they have a nice shanty town. They're not an over the hill shanty town or Family Island shanty town.
Because whatever happening outside of the walls, that don't affect them. Bear that in mind.
That's the definition of a shanty town.
Oh, okay.
And what about the gang activity?
Well, I think that's going to be one of the major foci, right, of the government. How are you going to disrupt gang activity, and particularly how are you going to disrupt youth gang activity?
Youth sports and culture.
How?
You have to engage
when
them.
The gang is a family.
You have to engage them.
But the gang is a family.
But there is a reason why these young people are going into these things, the unwantedness, or like Erin described. She looking at my boy on the corner, my boy giving him $10, and that's my boy hero, because there's no man there's no man standing up or standing in the gap to say, hey, little man, you need to go to school. Where those men used to say go to school, and we having these basketball programs, and we having these other educational programs, and we implementing these things because you have too many things going on. But my man would come in from the house with all those issues that you had going on. Grammy got this going on. That's the social service problem now. They supposed to be going to these houses now and figuring out what's going on. We have statistics on everything. We supposed to know what's happening. So I don't know.
I was about to say, those people have a statutory duty of care to do those things. That's why we put the blame on them.
It's enforcement. See, it goes right back to the enforcement thing. Because if you're on my front desk, as you're an employee to the government, you're an employee to the people, and you have a nasty attitude, that means either you're not supposed to be to the front, and you're supposed to be somewhere to the back mopping the floor, but not to the front.
Why you keep blaming the person with the nasty attitude? I don't want it to sound like I'm attacking you. What I'm suggesting is that even when you go into a workplace and your first line of engagement has a poor attitude, right? Then I would say let's focus on management, because how is it that people supposedly have a good job and come to work and still have these attitudes, right?
Yeah, I see that.
I don't know.
See, I don't employ nobody.
I don't know.
See, I don't employ anybody.
I was working like everybody.
He's Afrocentric, so he may have an idea why.
It's about a statutory duty of care, right? Here we are. We having a whole conversation about the minimum wage and the livable wage, right? And we've heard very little input from social or socio-economic advocates, researchers, scientists, right? Talking about the negative impact of the wage gap, right? Living at the poverty line. Or we've heard from business people saying how hard it's going to be able to do anything with the increase in the minimum wage or livable wage. We need social scientists on the ground talking to us about the impact of these things.
We still have Bahamians living in shacks in New Providence. I wouldn't even go on the island. And then you still got Bahamians that are having outside toilets. See, these are main issues in our country. You have to start to address these issues.
And this is where I again push the issue of the psyche, the national psyche. We are beating down Bahamians to have an inferiority complex where we settle for less, where we tolerate this type of ill behavior. And until we start treating the mind, treating that we should expect more, do more, and make more effort, we'll see that we'll always be to the bottom. But I see we have several texts here, and I'll let Erin read the text there. Go ahead, Erin.
Good morning. I don't think it's a matter of blue or white collar crime as much as it is who commits the crime. Many quote unquote prominent citizens that have gotten away with quote murder unquote. Just saying. The political, I would call it the political class determines who is worthy of incarceration and who isn't worthy of incarceration. Another text, great show as usual. We are not producing murderers. The problem is we don't like rules. Look how we drive. Look how we litter. Look at our customer service. Anything buck up goes.
So that speaks of law enforcement. So that goes right back to Wayne Monroe and the Minister of National Security, and not necessarily us. I think in the main, Bahamians, and numbers show that the majority of the Bahamians are law-abiding citizens.
Definitely. Now,
there are a number of us who like slackness, who like get tipped, who like to who look left and look right and will run the red light. But in the main of serious crime, robbing and thieving and raping and pillaging, Bahamians are not like that. So to say that we are producing murderers is an untruth. We are not producing murderers.
We're not.
But I would say that a jaywalker is a red light runner, and a red light runner is a murderer. A jaywalker is a red light runner, and a red light runner is a murderer.
I hear you trying to say that. No, that ain't going like that.
No, they're going to be two different things.
But why not?
If there is no striped, what I think is called a stripe walking thing, you have no other choice but jaywalking. The crime has been committed by the state.
Yeah,
because it's their duty to actually have that visible. That's their duty. Just like when I pay road traffic.
Therefore I have to jaywalk.
When I pay road traffic.
Now, if you had told me there are no sidewalks, see, if you had said to me there are no sidewalks, so someone is forced to walk into the road.
No, the indicator in the middle of the road is clearly what you use for that purpose of jaywalking.
No, it's also being in the road when you ain't supposed to be in the road.
Yeah,
right? and sidewalk is a perfect example of the state making criminals out of people.
And that's where I'm hinting towards, especially if you traverse on Bay Street as a resident and you see the police officers directing traffic, or because the Bay Street is the most policed area in the Bahamas, and you see tourists walking and don't mind the jaywalking code sign, whatever it is, and the police looking at them say, they're just tourists. Again, that plays towards the Bahamian psyche, and whereas we are responding to it. Crime happens because it's a learned habit, and we are learning from our police officers, our law enforcement, that you can get away with crime because they're enforcing it for everybody.
Depending on who it is.
Depending on who it is.
Mm-hmm. I still say that those people you included in the petty thing, they are also criminals. Because you run a red light once, you run a red light twice. The third time you run a red light, you're supposed to get serious about making sure you don't ever run a red light again.
Aaron, if it's 1 o'clock in the morning, don't expect Cecil to stop at the red light.
I'm not talking about.
I'm just letting you know.
Hold on, but I'm not talking about.
I look left and right. Yeah. I look left and right.
But we're not.
You better catch me.
Paranoid in the nighttime.
We're not talking.
Sounds
about
like 1 o'clock at night you're doing the same thing.
We're not talking about 1 o'clock in the morning. We're talking about 8:30 in the morning on the way to work this morning. We're talking about tourism actors trying to blow other tourism actors off the light, knowing that the light is red, knowing why they're not going. I'm saying that behavior shouldn't be in the category of...
Because they endanger other person's life. See, you have to always think about the next person, because if you speed across the red light like that, you could hit somebody else's car and that could cost their life. So, you have to be responsible. I think, like what CA says, for the majority of Bahamians, I think that we do have a care in terms of what happens in our country. We do care about our country. We do love our country. And we do have a problem with the murders. We all should have a problem with the murders right now, because the reality is, every mother and father and Grammy and uncle and persons that have somebody that died, and we call it unfortunate or untimely death, these young men are products of the soil, and they have to realize their worth. But the reality is some of them do not really understand their worth, and this is why they're finding themselves in these particular situations. You said earlier with lack of education, maybe because of their impoverished state that they may be in. But these are all questions and all answers we have to answer when we engage these young men. We have to say to them, what is the problem? What is the statistics in terms of finding these young men a skill or trade to get them working? Because most of the time we find back in the day, Cecil, when we were younger, in the ghetto, when those gangbangers that we know were gangbanging, the minute they got a job or they got a girlfriend and they started to work and then they started to travel, they wasn't interested in the gangbanging anymore.
Pause. When they started to work and they started to travel, you know how much money you have to be making to be able to start to travel?
1 A suit draw, that's Bahamian style.
Yeah, I take a couple weeks though.
1 A suit draw still Bahamian style.
Yeah, but you got to get the first draw.
1 A suit still Bahamian thing. Whenever he get his money, he get a little $3,000. He jump on a plane for the first time and realize, hey, the world bigger than just where he is. And guess what? He don't want to get in any problem anymore.
It's an opportunity. We need lacking opportunity.
I think it's more than that. I think it's about what opportunities, like you say, Cecil, it's a psyche thing. What opportunities exist here, and what can we expect? If you grew up in the Scarface era, right? If you were a Bahamian man who your favorite movie at any point in time was Scarface, or probably is still Scarface, right? Then what motivates you?
I heard you like Scarface. I don't know what happened. The poor Hispanic was just coming from one place and making it big. That would have something big for you then. I don't know. I love Cocaine Cowboys.
No. It's a similar movie. I don't like Scarface. You're missing the point. The point is that there are a vast majority of men who, at some point in time, have said that Scarface is their favorite movie. You say it ain't Scarface for me. It's Cocaine Cowboys. I can't even say it right. I don't know what them things are about. What I'm saying to you is that if these movies and these types of movies are integral parts of the Bahamian masculine or feminine psyche, right? Scarface, Cocaine Cowboys, right? Then how do you motivate those people to work? How do you motivate those people to strive in a community that cannot provide them anything that they associate with the image of a man that they want to be?
Campaign skill.
I don't understand.
We have to run campaigns. And we have
no.
I said we as a body.
Not me. You sound like a politician.
You as a body.
They like running campaigns.
You have
in fact, I will argue that has not been successful. That these promises, right, that have only driven young people deeper into criminality
because they lack a skill.
No, because
they lack a skill.
No, because they now lack trust because you destroyed it. Because in your attempt to become a government, you tried to convince them. What they say, through me, they say through Christ, with all things I could do anything.
But we want to give them
through me, the politician, you could do anything.
No. See,
we've sold them a dream that we cannot fulfill.
Don't say we can't. We can because we can as a whole, as a body. We can as a whole, as a body. The reality is every man, every woman is charged with the responsibility to do their part of their country, to make their country what it is. But every man and every child.
Who are you putting this charge on?
Every man is a Bahamian, every woman is a Bahamian. If you have a Bahamian passport and you're Bahamian, you're charged with it.
Ian, get past the generalizations. Let's talk about the actual lived experiences of Bahamians. What you telling me is that you expect the little boy who grow up in the Bahamian mud, right? He grow up off Fate Avenue. He grow up off the road where Coca-Cola is now in the shanty town in the back there. Mm-hmm. He's grown up with 5 siblings. He's grown up watching his mother be abused and raped by any man that come in the house because that man was willing to put things in the house for the children, right? Mm-hmm. He himself may have been raped. He have every girl he's tried to initiate an intimate relationship has been a victim of some sort of sexual abuse, right? Mm-hmm. He get locked. The boys them who get thrown on the bus and driven out to Adelaide to get beat up. Yep. The young men who, and I know a couple of them, who get hook up their young civil servants, and just petty, miserable, disgusting people have messed up their life forever. Who are you putting this charge on? Does the charge lay equally on that young boy as it does on the Minister of National Security, as it does on the Prime Minister? Does that charge lay the same? Do you have the same expectations of them? And then why don't you demand more? Why don't you demand more from them politicians?
They're the leaders. I mean, anytime you're in a leadership position, Aaron, I believe that you have the grave responsibility to ensure.
But are you seeing that play out? Did we see that play out in the pandemic when all of us were supposed to be subject to the same health care? Right? Let's use the hospital as an example. The hospital will never get fixed. The healthcare system will never get fixed if politicians are not forced
Did we use the same system? Did we make them accountable? The question is, did we as a people, as a body, make them accountable?
Are you making them accountable?
Okay, we're talking about it. Did 500 Bahamians, 1,000 Bahamian, did 10,000 Bahamians go downtown and refuse to move and park all of the vehicles there?
But Ian, here's a better question. Have you refused to engage with other Bahamians who are not serious about this? What are you doing and what sacrifices are you making?
Like glad you laughed.
To show the politicians how serious you are about your critique, not complaining, about your critique, right? Are you committed to telling your friends This is my journey. And if you don't commit to these ideals, don't watch nothing. You don't have to be on this journey with me.
But stick a pin right there.
Yeah.
We need to take a commercial break right now. It's my 45-minute there.
Yeah.
This has been Guardian. We have someone on the line too? No, we can do that. Call them on the next side. So it's going to be Guardian Radio in AM. I see we have someone on the line. As soon as we get back, I'll come directly to you. We have a brief break right now.
Producer, play that song I asked you to play, please. We're about to go to a break. It'll be our last break before the end of the show. So while I have this 3 seconds to continue rowing y'all, right? I think it's incumbent upon us, the people, to not just say that we demand it, right? But in our own lives, to take steps and actions that show our peers, the political class, that we are serious about making these commitments, and we demand that they be serious as well. Because the two meat culture ain't saying nothing to nobody, but hey, it's two meats. You could get to the table. Producer, thank you for taking us to the break. This is Jones Oh Jones by Blind Blake.
If anybody in here can tell me if they seen old Jones. Jones oh Jones, boy, you know you can't last long. Jones oh Jones, you better bring my woman back home. Got a 4 for Daniel with me, gonna buy me a gallon.
1 in every 4 people in the Bahamas face some level of food insecurity. Through our annual Feed 5,000 program, AML Foods remains steadfast in our commitment to help those struggling with hunger and will donate $5,000 to provide holiday meals to families this Christmas. But we need your help. From November 14th to December 19th, show your support and donate at the register at any Solomon's, Cost Right, Solomon's Fresh Market, Exuma Markets, or Domino's locations in New Providence, Grand Bahama, and Exuma. Together, let's put an end to hunger.
Love the show? Want to give your support? Become a sponsor today. Call 302-2300 for our rates and packages. That's 302-2300. Become a sponsor on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
Remember when Zoom was just a sound effect? When your living room wasn't your gym? When a cough didn't scare people away? That was the good old days. And thankfully, they are coming back. As things return to normal, remember it is essential to be fully immunized against all vaccine-preventable diseases like COVID-19, diphtheria, tetanus, measles, and influenza. This message is brought to you by PAHO WHO, the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the Caribbean Development Bank, the Government of Canada, and the United States of America.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
To meet you, Jones, you know it ain't no use to run. I got the ambulance down, you with me? Undertaker too, and here's the studio doctors offering me money for you. I'm going to keep you for myself. I'm going to kill you dead and bury you. Gonna dig you up for fun. I'm going to stand and watch the buzzard pick the meat off your bones. I'm going to take my wet and butcher. Gonna chop you through and through. I'm going to chop you.
And welcome back to Guardian Radio AM and Guardian Radio AM.
You wanted to say it. You wanted to say it.
Joined with On the Clock, Aaron Green, and we have our guest host today, Ian Munnings. We're talking crime mostly, right? And on the break, I was talking to Aaron, what is tragic? And Aaron evoked some emotions to me, get me all teary-eyed. She reminded me about the incident with the little girl who had the tragic accident on the park. I can call the school. What a school is? It's a Catholic school, which has been closed down, right? But they have a parquet set. And I remember the bishop said that the school is closed and the gate should have been closed, so they do not have the responsibility.
Hold on, wait. That's what the church issued that state?
I remember the conversation on the news that because the question was, why haven't the bishop or the church visited the lady, the parent of the dead child? And I remember the statement saying that the school was closed and they under investigation on what happened, how do you get access to it. But to me, that's a crime to itself, because I believe, because it's on your property, because the swing set wasn't bolted down, because, if you drive by, you see that kids have access to the property, be it through a hole through the wall, gate open, whatever it is.
Because it's the type of things on the park are attractive to kids, so you know it's likely that they will attempt to make their way there, even if there is a indicator that they shouldn't be there, right? I stand to be corrected. The owner of the property has a duty of care.
Of making sure the place is secure.
That if nobody is supposed to be on it, that it is secured, that if it is potential that the children could access it, that the things that are there are safe.
Yes.
Right? But you telling me that they actually...
And I even will use a loosely, just in case, even though I heard it on the news, just in case, give them a loophole. My point is, the tragic event that happened there was a crime. It was a crime against humanity in terms the child is now dead, right? I think that the church has a duty of care to compensate the parent, a duty of care to address the emotional the concerns of the parent. I think they have a duty of care of securing the premises. They have a duty of care to the community, her friends and family. And since that incident has happened, we have heard nothing. I think the media has a duty of care of going to see what is happening, following up, and nothing. I mean, just gone quiet. So again, that's a crime against us. That's a crime against the human society, and that breeds more contempt and it breeds more crime.
Right. And so when I talk about who we laying the blame on, Ian, this is also a mother that I think lost another child prior to losing this child. Right. It doesn't matter how she lost the child. It doesn't matter what activity the child was engaged in or she was engaged in. Like Cecil said, there are statutory duties involved, and then there should be a moral duty of care and an ethical, because you are the church, an ethical duty of care to do something different. At the very least, ensure that the young lady has access to psychosocial services.
Definitely.
The same thing with the Carissa Culmer case, right? If you were purporting that the young lady had mental health issues, right? And she needed to be in a safe house or in a safe place, why would you put her in that style of safe house where there is no oversight? There's nobody really there to tend to her as a patient, as opposed to a tenant in a space, right?
Or the situation with the young lady that went to the police station for help. She sat in there with her 2 kids, and she was going through, didn't find anywhere to live, all that kind of stuff. I think she worked at Wendy's. She drove the car off the ramp in Montague.
Oh, it's a while back.
You remember that, right?
With a lady and her 2 kids.
It's saying that there's a lot of trauma. It says that more people need to be held accountable. It's saying that we have an enforcement problem in our country. We're saying that we need to start to correct these situations rather than compounding more problems and more problems.
Right.
Like you said, the church has the responsibility, because if you created that environment for that, like you said, psychologically, that mother is going through trauma already.
Right. And at a cultural level, do we understand that some things are because you acted, right? And people say, well, Cecil tell you, I don't have nothing to do with that. I wasn't on the road when that happened. I don't know them by them. And then some things are because we didn't fulfill our duty to act. Because sometimes we think by not acting, we have no impact on the situation, but our absence of action also impacts the situation. Okay, it is 11:54, Mr. Newry. Can I read some of these texts?
Go ahead, man.
All right. Great show as usual. It's hard for Scarface not to be someone's favorite movie. It's a classic. I just watched it twice yesterday. I think it's silly to not acknowledge the place that Scarface would hold in the lives of citizens, black-skinned citizens, brown-skinned citizens of a post-colonial country in the 21st century. Another text, Aaron, we were in trouble from the 80s. The only problem was the drug money was flowing and everyone was happy. Now DEA clamped down and it's every man for himself. So the murders ramp up because we never really created a country that was progressive. Man, Scarface, the Godfather, loved them all. What stopped me was going to church and having the fear of God. Another text, CA, if I have secured my property, but people cut my fence or in some other way breach my property, why would I be responsible for harm that comes to them while they are trespassing? That is generally the case, but this is a playground. And with the children's equipment visible to children from outside the property, there's an extra duty of care that you expect that children would ignore the rules or break the rules to attempt to play on the playground.
What would Jesus do? That's why I want to ask. What would Jesus do?
He would do the right thing.
What's the right thing?
He would go and engage that family, and whether or not you felt that you were responsible for it, like you said, there are certain things that was supposed to be in place, and normally I know when they close the school, they have security there, and if that wasn't in place and was not law, then you gave an opportunity for those person or those children that may not know that the school is closed to say that, I want to play on the park.
Or that the park is closed because of the
whatever.
condition of the equipment that they want
Definitely.
to play on. Another text, Aaron, Google FTX in the NBA, FTX in Major League Baseball, FTX in Mercedes Formula One, FTX in Japan, SoftBank FTX in BlackRock Investment Fund, FTX in Sequoia Capital Fund, FTX in the EU. Aaron, FTX was global. He was doing everything on his computers, and that is locked down or on a flash drive and in his head. You see, the feds ain't no what to do. I knew what to do.
But Aaron, let the Americans deal with them other set.
Yeah.
Let's deal with the FDS Bahamas.
Definitely.
That's what I say.
It's our jurisdiction. We'll handle our section,
Aaron,
and the other people handle their section.
I keep saying we should have learned from the Clico incident and all these other prior incidents keep coming in, and these persons coming in to do business. We need to have X amount of dollars in escrow. And if you decide that you want to be Jack the Ripper or Jack the Mover, we can have this money in holdings, and we're going to protect
But we did better this time. We secured the property.
Well, the property was ever ours.
And we will sell it and then pay those
No,
people who need.
play something else to end the show. We
Well,
can't leave the people.
I have whole 3 minutes.
The property was ever our own, see?
Yeah, but we the idea is
He's the government, we can
will
always
pay
secure
it.
it.
See, these Bahamians who are here and who invested, we'll pay them out first, and then those employees, we'll pay them out second, or whatever.
By
it
what,
is.
selling the property?
By selling the properties.
And we have to find a buyer that's willing to purchase it.
Don't worry.
Listen, once it aligns with the requirements of the legislation regulating the space.
But if you had X amount of dollars in escrow, I wouldn't have to worry about that.
Wait, if I had X amount of dollars in escrow, you wouldn't even know my name, buddy.
Execute.
I would be out of here. But I think, the question is it really, what are the cultural attitudes towards crime in the Bahamas? How do we moderate our own behavior? What is acceptable and what isn't acceptable? Whether we're talking about Sam Bankman-Fried or we're talking about the Fox Hill roundabout shooting last night, right? We have to get into the psyche of the people. The Minister of National Security is only half wrong. I mean, mainly wrong, mostly wrong, but partially right.
However, the cattle burl merit, I still gonna have the address. Bahamians should be first. And you everything when you deal with business, international or local, we have to think about Bahamian people being first, period.
Absolutely. Mr. Newry?
Yeah, I'm saying that we just need to invest our time and energy in securing the Bahamas. I embrace the fact that it's everyone's up to the bat, or everyone they put their shoulder to the wheel, but just definitely the services, the police force, the defense force, government institutions need to do a better job. This blaming nobody and everybody ain't gonna be the solution. It just can't be the solution.
It hasn't been working, and I would imagine that it's been driving crime, right? It's been a factor driving crime. It increases the trust deficit. It is just a problem. Last text, Mr. Newry. Morning, miss. Why people obsession with Scarface? He was racist against Bahamians, calling us monkeys. Well, I think, similar to a sentiment that Mr. Newry shared earlier that he has realized is spreading. The Bahamas is a beautiful place, but for the Bahamians.
This has been Guardian Radio on the AM with C.A. Newry, and of course, Aaron Green with On the Clock, and our guest host today, Ian Munnings. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a wonderful day.
I'll be doing wrong, but I do right. You never know, that's enough. Woo!